A whisper is about the closest thing to silence with a voice. The first performer is Corey Thuro. You may welcome him the same way I welcomed performers and lectures when I was in grammar school. You use these two fingers and these two fingers, and you clap. Thank you, and please welcome Corey Thuro.
Summon, guide, order, contest, refuse. Words confirm, encourage, support, bless, console. But there are events so vast, too grand, too terrible, that push words away. Before the Grand Canyon, we are silent. Any words can only trivialize the grandeur spread before us. Before a forest fire incinerating thousands of mammals and birds, we are speechless. Words have no hold, cannot attach to the raging flames. Before great loss, the void, nothingness, words lose their force and their meaning. Visiting someone prostrate with a terminal illness, the formulas, "How are you? I wish you well," are empty and stupid. At a funeral, we mumble, "I am sorry for your loss," because that's what one says. Words that do not express what we mean. There are no words that we mean. Someone you loved died. Someone with whom you shared everything. Everything you did in the house and at work was to live together. Everything you thought was addressed to or responded to your beloved. All your wit, your amusements, your pleasures wove you and your beloved together. Now all that was cut short, sunk into the void. To do those things, to undertake things, has lost its purpose. Thinking about tomorrow, next week, next summer crumbles away. Feelings turn in desolation. You have nothing to say, and what people are saying to you is hubbub. Sigmund Freud wrote that mourning is a long process by which you have to, one after another, let go of all that attached you to the one who died and transfer the attachments to other things, to another person. It is true that you have to begin to live again. Your beloved who died does not want you to die, wants you to live. But you do not want to let go of all that attached you to your beloved. On that day, Michael and Kelly had been married 22 months. On that day, Michael was in Montreal. On that day, 100 miles away, Kelly was the only one killed in a streetcar collision. On that day, Kelly was killed in a streetcar collision. Michael looked down at the coffin in the grave. Kelly was a black void. Michael's mind was a black void. His young life sent forth to a radiant, working, and loving future was a black void. The funeral rite was accomplished. One after another, the people touched Michael, sometimes tried to murmur something that did not register in Michael's mind. One after another, they left. Nobody ventured to try to bring Michael away. For what? To do what? To say what? Michael lost his mind. Thoughts pick up the layout of the world, pick up possibilities, envision goals and reasons and paths and means. Thoughts formed in Michael's mind only to shudder and blur their lines and break together without being able to activate Michael. Feelings turned in a pit of darkness. One day, a month later, Michael's mind was filled with hallucinations. Hallucinations of being there with Kelly, seeing her stiffen, cry out, stomp her foot on the brake, seeing the car scream and buckle, seeing her body crush, seeing her breath, her life escape her. Every day, all day, there was nothing in Michael's mind but the hallucinations. Michael did not seek counseling. Then one day, 3 weeks later, the hallucinations were not there. They did not return. One day, Michael went again on his bicycle to Kelly's grave. After he did not return to his apartment, he headed east, alone on his bike. 2 months later, he reached the Atlantic coast. Then he took a plane to Vancouver on the Pacific coast and headed back east on his bike, back to Kelly's grave. He biked for a year, alone, 10,000 kilometers. A year of silence. Michael had no cause, no goal or purpose. It was not something he was doing for Kelly. Kelly was lost forever in the black void. To pump the bike for 10,000 kilometers makes one completely physical. Consciousness exists now in the tensions and the release of the muscles, in the feeling of strength and in the fatigue. Consciousness exists on the surface of the body, all sensitive to the sun, the wind, the cold, the rain. A consciousness that excludes thinking, remembering, envisaging works and ambitions. The road without destination, rising and descending kilometer after kilometer. There was no planning the day ahead. Who knows what the weather will be, what the road will be. The end of the day, Michael sinks heavily into dark sleep. Our place is a refuge or retreat that we have appropriated. Where Michael stopped for the night was a place forthwith to leave. The open road drew movement into him. Stretches of the road rose in relief, throbbing with speed or tranquility, with ardor and exhilaration. Sometimes the landscape opens upon vistas glistening with dew and birdsong. Sometimes physical fatigue blurs the eyes. The landscape dissolves into green dust. Nature was surfacing with its assembled trees and wayward clouds, the dull rumble of thunder and the frenzied rage of lightning, the poised paws of deer and soft-furred, scurrying animals, the birds sprinting and calling to him without him understanding their calls. During 10,000 kilometers, nature was tunneling into him in his strong breathing, strong pushing, strong feeling, strong forcing, strong dancing, strong singing out. He felt nature guiding his body and felt an intensity of trust that he had never known before. The sun and the breeze fueled his body. He was a body in nature, like a prayer in the prairie, like a hare in the prairie, a bird in the sky. One day, Michael told me of his year of mourning, his year on the road. I thought it was right. Everything he did was right. I could say why and how, but I think you think it was right.
Next up is an amazing writer, performer, musician named Eze Jackson. And he is going to read from his new book. And the book is... Can you see that? Black boys don't cry in front of girls. Please welcome Eze.
What's up, y'all? Hey. So I've been reading pieces from this book, Black Boys Don't Cry in Front of Girls, that thanks a lot to these Crosscurrences, I'm finished the book. And so thanks to Andrew and Current Space for doing this. I'm going to read, the book is a collection of poems and short stories that are autobiographical. And I was going to read a poem and a short story, but I noticed that this story is a little long, on the longer side of short stories, so I'm just going to read this. It's called No Alibi. If you've known me personally, you know that The Roots have been my favorite band since 1995. I don't remember who gifted me a tape of their album, Do You Want More, but I believe it was my boy Jason Dortch. We were sophomores at the Baltimore School for the Arts. Our crew, The Connection, was a group of kids who rapped and loved finding hip-hop music that most people weren't up on. Jason, Daoud, Flip, Robert, Candace, Tiffany, and a few others were mostly visual arts and theater students. Hip-hop still wasn't considered a real art form by most in those days, so none of us would have gotten into the school for music. So initially, we were not very close to the music students who were learning shit like opera, jazz, and classical music. For us, hip-hop was an extracurricular activity, a creative outlet that we shared the love for during and especially outside of school. Baltimore had yet to embrace locally grown rappers the way it has today. The closest scene we had to admire that wasn't New York or LA was Philly. Philly and Baltimore are two cities only 2 hours apart with many similarities as it relates to black urban East Coast culture. So Black Thought's lyrics resonated with us in his storytelling. We learned through magazine articles that he and Questlove met as art school students, much like ourselves, and that they had endured many of the terrifying realities of inner city life that we had. For us, the Roots were a breath of fresh air, a voice for young black ghetto creators, innovative and mesmerizing. We'd end up tracking down copies of their first album, Organics, and studying the art of freestyling and performing with live bands through the work of their frontman, Black Thought, and co-pilots Malik B. and Dice Raw. This would inspire us to create impromptu jam sessions with kids from the music department, lunch table and after-school ciphers outside of the school, on the bus, train, and even down at the inner harbor when the weather was nice. We would often find opportunities to perform our original songs on the weekends at open mics and neighborhood festivals and block parties. Eventually, we'd end up recording demos at Flip's mother's, Sharon Jackson's studio. She ran a record label production company called Sound Sages. They would end up producing early music by the R&B duo Rough Ends. They are best known for their hit singles, No More Shopping Spree, No More Dough, and Someone to Love You. She linked us up with her producer and engineer, AJ Sterling, who still produces and is one of the most talented producers from our city. Here's the point of the story. In 1996, I experienced a culture shock almost equivalent to ripping a street tree out of the ground and planting it in a foreign forest. My mother, who was struggling to raise me and 5 of my siblings at the time, had signed up for a program called Move to Opportunity, which helped single mothers move their families from the inner city to the suburbs. We moved from Baltimore City to Columbia, Maryland. So it was in the middle of my junior year and my sister Anaya's freshman year at BSA that my mother would inform us one morning that she'd be taking us out of BSA and enrolling us in Wild Lake High School, our zone school in Columbia. This sudden move created resentment towards my mother from the two of us. The Baltimore School for the Arts was finally a school where my sister and I fit in. It was where we were accepted by our peers because of who we were and how talented we were instead of how nice our clothes were, how often we got haircuts and hairdos, what kind of car our mother drove, or how many pairs of new sneakers we got during the year. Instead, we'd be placed back into basic, boring public school with children we had no interest in being around, making us susceptible to the same bullying and fighting we'd endured throughout elementary and middle school. However, for Juanita, it would take major time off of her morning commute to not have to come to Baltimore so early and save her gas money with a school bus able to pick us up until I got my own car. To make matters worse, not long after transferring schools, our phone got turned off, causing us to lose communication with our friends from BSA. In those days, we didn't have cell phones. The internet was very limited, and writing letters was a lot more common but less convenient for teenagers. So it was during the winter of 96, 97 that I became closer and deeper in love with music. Isolation would cause me to spend hours listening and writing the instrumentals. Tupac had recently been murdered, and my best friend Tiffany Lindsay, who was and still is a huge fan of his, convinced me to put down my East Coast versus West Coast bias and listen to Pac. She and others, including my BSA voice teacher Nancy Krebs, had said I reminded them a lot of the West Coast rap icon who had spent some of his childhood in Baltimore at BSA. I fell in love with his album All Eyes on Me. I became obsessed with dance hall music through a compilation album called Reggae Gold 96. I even dug deeper into my mother's music by exploring the works of Marvin Gaye, Al Green, Stevie Wonder, Billie Holiday, Donny Hathaway, Sam Cooke, Otis Redding, and The Temptations. And it was also during this time that my favorite band, The Roots, would release Philadelphia Half-Life. To this day, it's arguably their best album. I'm often inclined to make arguments for Things Fall Apart, Game Theory, and How I Got Over, but that's another conversation. I'd found a way to get a beeper. Beepers or pagers were a way of communicating before cell phones. You found a payphone or a landline to let people know what number they can call you back on. We made plans that way. One Saturday night, Kim Perfetto, a dance student and friend of ours at BSA, was having a party at her parents' house, and my friend Galit Levy was driving. The squad, the connection, offered to come and pick me up. I gave them directions to the corner of Little Patuxent Parkway and Harper's Farm Road. It was up the street from the house of my only friends I'd made in Columbia. Esau Hudson and his brothers Jammer One and Prodigy would hang out in their basement making beats as we wrote raps, freestyled, and smoked blunts. Esau was cool, but sometimes I wasn't fond of the other guys we hung out with. SOS was a crew of other boys who went to Wild Lake and were nowhere near as good at rapping as me and the Connection, so I couldn't wait to leave and link up with my Baltimore City fam. I stood out on the corner waiting for like 2 hours. It was freezing cold. You can only dress but so warm for that kind of weather. The icy wind bit my face like an angry baby who had just grown their teeth. After the first hour, my toes and fingers began to ache, and my hope of being picked up began to wither by the minute. However, I hung in there, knowing that they were likely already on the road. Baltimore is only 20 to 30 minutes away, but walking to the closest payphone would risk the chance of them pulling up at any minute and not seeing me there. So I kept the faith, smoking beaties and freestyling to myself. Just as I was about to throw in a towel, a van pulled up on me. Galit was the first face I saw smiling, driving. The passengers, Daoud, Flip, and Jason. Doug swung the side door open and yelled, "Get in, nigga, we've been driving around this bitch for an hour trying to find your little dumb ass." I laughed as I licked and rubbed snot from my nose and tears from my eyes. The heat from inside the van sucked me in immediately like some kind of magic portal. The van was fully engulfed with the clean smell of Northern Lights strands and Philly blunt smoke. A blunt was passed to me. I slid the door shut, took a huge inhale of what I assumed was one of Doug's perfectly rolled blunts, as Galit immediately pushed play on what would become my favorite song off of Philadelphia Half-Life. I had not heard the album yet. It had just dropped. The haunting chords and ambient female vocals of No Alibi welcomed me into feeling extreme gratitude for the rescue from relentless cold. The company of my true friends and our favorite MC, Tariq Trotter, a.k.a. Black Thought, as he proclaimed on the hook, "If you've seen it or heard it, maybe probably I did it. Maybe or maybe not, I'll admit what I committed, exhibit the truth because I'm living proof wise. I have no disguise, no verdicts, no alibis." That song would be one of many songs in the score of my life. Nearly 30 years later, every single time I hear it, it still reminds me of that cold night and the art form that saved my life, hip-hop. At that moment, in that van, nothing else mattered. Not the cold I just endured, not the school and circle of corny county boys I'd been around, not the financial hardships that my mother was under. Nothing mattered except listening to this new album as I sat with my tribe headed to Kim's party to enjoy the night with a group of fellow young creatives who didn't care what I had on. They were happy to see me, and I was happy to be surrounded by love and hip-hop. Solid-ass alibi, if you ask me. Thanks.
Next up is Mary Dwan. Mary has never read here before, so this is a new experience for her and for me and probably for you. Give her a great big 4 fingers.
I'm going to read something that I wrote a really long time ago. It's a little strange, and maybe some poems. A gift, a cold fruit in one of my hands. I had been living in the orchard for some time when I first noticed it there, held, if not procured, by myself. The possibility that it had fallen from a tree did not escape me, but it also did not explain my firm grasp upon waking. Cold is the only coherent observation I can make about it, and even that is not certain because my hands are cold without the help of any fruit. It also may have been yellow. In the evening light, everything looks yellow. I was yellow. I may still be yellow, but it is not evening, and I do not live in the orchard anymore. It was not evening when I discovered the fruit, but it was close. Perhaps the remaining light was subtracted by the leaves all around. It seemed dark and yellow, as things do in the evening. Despite all this mystery, I was not ungrateful. I inspected it closely. Not as big as a melon, not much smaller. It was smaller even than a honeydew, the smallest melon I know, but it could have been a melon I do not know or one I had forgotten. The thought tormented me. By that time in my life, I had forgotten hundreds of melons. But this was not a melon. Now that I think about it, it was more simple than that. It was more of a fruit. And there were many bruises. I don't know how many, not through any lack of effort on my part. It was too large to count them all at once, so I turned it round eternally, counting, with no idea of where I'd started, no memory at all of the first bruise. Then I tried to mark the place of each with a finger, and that didn't work either. I began strongly to suspect that the fingers not already marking bruises were making bruises, and there's no way to tell the two kinds apart, and there's no way of marking your place on a decaying sphere without making a mark, even if it was not really a sphere, but more oblong, like this one was. At least that was my impression at the time. I'm certain anyway that there were more marks on it when I was finished counting than when I began. The important thing is, there were no big black ones, like the kind the ground makes when it falls on you from a great height, but only little finger-sized ones, like mine. I remember this first confusion in the orchard when it suddenly became too complicated, when I had been living there on and on without ever yet considering the fruit. But of this fruit, which was singular in almost every imaginable way, I have no clear memory. It still takes me by surprise. And there was no time. It was rotting fast. I had no wish to eat it, and curious as I was about its insides, it was upsetting me. I needed to get rid of it. My greatest wish was to give it back somehow. And I looked wildly into the trees for other things like it, the same color or shape, where it would fit in or at least cease to stand out. There was nowhere. Apparently my hand, left or right, was its natural habitat, and there it remained, my abject squeeze. Finally, I threw it away, upwards, as far as possible from the lying down position, and I did not hear it hit the ground. I must have been very powerful then. Is there more time? So I'm an insomniac. Does anyone else here suffer from that peculiar affliction? I've always been that way. I've always fretted in the dark. When I was very small, I found out about the sort of general scope of things that we were dealing with, certain other immutable facts of life. I used to cry every night, And then for a long time, I would cough every night. Like every time I would get under the covers, tickle would start to crawl into my throat. And then there was like a hallucinations phase that I won't go into here, but my big brother used to tell me, like, just don't think about anything bad. So you can imagine how that played out in the darkness of my 7-year-old mind. And now I try to take my grandfather's advice, which was think of nothing, which does not work, but it sounds wonderful. So I don't know, that's all this long introduction to a few poems. That's just the sort of thing that can go on in that sort of liminal space. If you haven't had insomnia, I guess what happens is that you lie there, not sleeping, like all night long. And you're also not part of the world exactly either. You're just there for like the length of a cross-country flight. It's like pretty crazy. So that's the excuse I came up with for showing up here with like 6 different pieces about laying around in bed. I'll read a couple poems. This one is for Lily. Go back asleep on my couch with your book on your lap and your coat still on, face flush inches from the space heater. Too close, but not dangerously close. You'd been emptying yourself out. You were already exhausted, and I was already content to be reading next to your dreaming. Why did I clack my camera, knowing that you have to change the thing to take a picture of the thing? Why do this perverse work, cutting tiny pieces out of our lives so that I can have a collection somewhere? Already tired enough, wise enough, before so many facts appeared. When we were grateful for our pain, take turns, wan, smiling, looking when we wanted to look. Here I am asking you to do more work. Stay her, and the person I will meet soon, and the girl you were before him, contain all your multitudes. I know you will still be a fisherman, net down in a torrential current, getting muck stuck to it, even though it is being washed and washed and washed and washed. This one is about waking up next to someone who doesn't love you. Enjoy. I'm just kidding. Was it like looking at the flame of a match in the desert on a day that is not exactly dark, but lightless and darkless, dry, but wet looking? How long was it orange there, glowing against all those browns soaked into their shapes? Did it sneak up on you? How did you get here? Or did my bed and I just kind of seep in around your body? Is it one of those mornings where you still can't figure out where you are? Do you pretend that your eyes never opened and put off that second gulp of consciousness, that turning over? Does it feel like me when I realize there's no one there again, except good? Still all that day coming in through tall white cotton, but psychedelic now that your eyes are closed. I'll take this spin and spin alone around. This one is about looking at someone who's looking at you. Wake up and try to live in that part of sex where you lie there watching him carefully pluck all his chest hairs off of your body with utter seriousness, as though he thinks there was a moment back there while he was overwhelmed with consuming you that he almost made the terrible mistake of turning you into him, and he has to work quickly to reverse the process. The best position for this is kneeling beside the bed, where his eyes can be alert to anomalies along the horizon of your skin, which is suddenly unbelievably soft and precious again, lest he pinch it. He does not pinch it. His hands cause warmth or goosebumps. He attends to you silently, even forgetting that you're there, removing other things too, specks of dirt and bruises. His hands move over you with the sculptor's efficiency, making adjustments with precision, cleaning up, taking away. And you wish that someone would do this to your mind. Okay, if I have time, can I do a couple little dumb ones just to lighten it up? I feel that got glum. Sitting in the sun every morning, sitting with some peppermint blood water in my mouth from the flossing mid-afternoon, still listlessly clenching my stomach every now and then to assuage the guilt of just sitting here. I read somewhere that this is what Salma Hayek does to keep trim. Salma is never just sitting, waiting for Mom to get back with the Kleenex and hot dog buns. She flew off just as soon as we were done eating hot dogs and blowing our noses, chuckling at the futility of it all. All right, this is the last one, but this is about online shopping at 4 a.m. It is that time of the night morning when you are just looking for pain, and then you find out about lip exfoliator. This is where you scrub the lips off instead of putting them on. Now this is what you came for. Another cycle, obvious now that you think of it in its perfect balance, wiping your mouth onto the face, wiping it off, and having, by this simple method, almost always a mouth. Okay.
Next is the amazing Rae Red with 2 works for you. This is the handwriting of Rae Red. Rae, R-A-E, not R-A-Y.
Oh, wow. Hello. I have 2 videos for you. I just recently realized that all of my work is visual poetry, and that was cool to figure out after I've been making stuff for a long time. This theme of silence feels really pertinent to the first piece I'm going to share. It's a piece I wrote for a loved one who died about exactly a year ago. And we had a show up in the gallery at Current Space, and a year ago we dedicated one of the performances to her. So it feels really beautiful to be back exactly a year later, sharing a piece that I made for her memorial. But before that, it feels really apt to have a moment of silence all together, our collective power to send towards the travesty and devastation that is happening in Palestine. Feels like the theme of silence cannot be overlooked in that sense. So I would invite you all to just take a moment, close your eyes if you're comfortable, take a deep breath, come back to your body, and bear witness to the genocide that is taking place on our tax dollars. Thank you all. And when Michael's ready, I will read you this poem. And I'm going to stand up here with it because it feels like we should be together. If I can get up there. I'm ready. I am in the bath, the best place to have a thought. So much has happened here. The big plans come, the great ideas. Once there was a surprise bloodbath, the beginning of a love. Once there was bathed anxiety and swirling sorrow, the beginning of another love. Once there was brash boldness, the beginning of a third love. Many times it was healing to scald and submerge, an endless negotiation, turning skin red and seeping. Activation turned to puckered wrinkles. Reading some of the best words lifted up off the oily waters, writing some of the best, traced into the steam, sending off of poems from the salty water. Practicing is in the bubbles. Many people have died lately, and I usually know how to talk about it. Unrelated people becoming together in death, all lumped with the same echoing, hollow feeling of big hole, big, empty universe hole to not look at. But right now, instead of speaking, I mostly just feel it in the bath. Drowning is not foreign to me. The many ways people go with fire and snow. Close loves have died before and will again. And so I think about trans sex and death, inextricably linked, defined. Can I show it? I shove it. I show it. Death is and always. And so the skeletons fuck. I have found hardness in the bath. I have hardened, I am hard, and I like it. But I am also very, very soft. This is the softness. My dad, whose who is love, has recently died. She is dead. He gazed upon the skeletons fucking endlessly and reflected. They don't always need to. At the most vulnerable, honorable, and tender, we hold each other. And so I practice these shapes. Skeletal friends are holding. Just like I hold. Love as a reference. Anxious holding. To put on display. That we don't have to be defined by death and sex only or punching just to feel, but also by softness that must be practiced. That is more difficult. Yes, I have fucked in the bath and cried, and the water gets cold. I have one more for you that is just it's not just a video, it is a video of a poem and an animation. It's called Future's Future, and it's part of a larger work that I've been touring over the last summer. So enjoy.
Future's future. Who? Aliens. Space. Shiny objects. Data. Spaceships. Hovercrafts. AI. Robots. Deeper awareness and capacity for love.
The future is nothing we have ever seen before. My future is an open field, a blank mind, clarity. My lucid dream is magic past, present, or future.
Future is the same as the past, just as unknown and out of reach, based on the present like a mirror, a two-way mirror, no, a three-way mirror that reflects back and forward at the same time based on where you stand in the present, into both unknowns.
Boundaries blur, both based on each and every decision we make, big and small. Each moment older, but not always farther along. Each decision gives you a sense of control you thought you lost long ago in adulthood.
I'm the oldest I've ever been right now, and now, and now, and now. It's not a line, it's not linear. The future is a circle, a spiral. We may have had more answers long ago. We circle back before we can go forward. A circle spiraling, time a gatekeeper.
I want to talk about space. A lucid dream I had floating through the universe, summoning neon shapes. Like a video game where my whole body is the controller. The same shapes that my mind summoned in the dark of Terrell's sensory deprivation room. The darkest room possible. To erase a person and leave a floating awareness and nothing more. Showing you what your mind will create when it is left to its own devices.
No input, just generating. No media to consume, no news, no climate collapse. Without it, my brain made
a neon dragon zooming right at me. I caught my breath and held it. I'm still holding my breath. Dragon swishing its tail as it passed by my right ear. It is as real as you are to me now as I am to you. A vision. I will rub my mind against yours in the dark. What is it making out of nothing? Can my dragon touch yours?
The future overwhelms. Everything is too big when you examine it. Contains eternity. When given the care and curiosity and time, time as usual is the gatekeeper. In the future, when I am ancestor, I want to see them try. Please. The power is so powerful. Finding love is power too. All the books say so. And the future is genius. Close your eyes and see. Try again.
Try again. What happens when we keep trying? Close your eyes and breathe. Future is whole and thriving. We are whole and thriving. In the future, we look back and say, they tried so hard. Tried too hard. Tried too hard. Tired too hard.
And then learned to rest. And the answers finally came. The ones we could never fathom or dream. Fathom or dream came. In the quiet, in the rest.
Get me out of here. Out of the present. Imagine a trans existence. A future beyond the white supremacist carceral state. Beyond late-stage corporate capitalism. Beyond climate collapse. Beyond heteropatriarchy. Beyond those big words and phrases repeating and losing meaning.
Ability to dream big dreams. Beyond survival and scarcity, we have dealt with the apocalypse and sorted through the rubble in the future we imagine.
Our future is one of imagination. It's heavy and unwieldy, but we try. Try.
Keep trying. Put on my spacesuit and eject. Off into the unknown, holding hands with you. And you. And you. And you. Wow, I see so many loves from out here. We are holding hands.
I am the luckiest dog in the park. I'm the fuzziest cat purring. In the future is creature.
We're .1 grand. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Julianne, everybody at Current. Thanks, Andy, for putting tonight on. Super nice. Quiet.
Quiet.
Quiet?
Quiet.
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 Quiet. Quiet.
Quiet.
Quiet. Quiet. Quiet. Quiet.
I saw that you heard wrong and felt sour. The dust is getting thick on all the mirrors. Full moon is tomorrow. After the holiday, the dogs are biting right now. Throughout the Christmas cheese bounced back on articles on the go. On the oarsman Chevrolet, on the mythic Dairy Queen. That's where I learned to paint. Time for the winos to pluck their grapes. Time for the winos to pluck their grapes. Some girls love packaged ham and milk for lunch. Some girls wish her uncle tattoo. He'd handcuff into Chase the pig with the cow. Wash it on down. Wash it on down. Take aim at the base of the flames. The base of the flames. Take aim at the base of the flames. Take aim at the base of the flames. Take aim at the base of the flames. The base of the flames.
apologize. I am a bit before myself, I guess. I make believe I excuse myself for pleading my case. For halves, half-wits, meters, feelers, tendrils sparking in darkness. Love is all around us. The thin always speeds up when we touch them. Thickness reminds us of our past. Past gas, cosmic gas, natural gas, classical gas. Nothing is seen for real. We are here. We sleep through a movie. Wake up, honey, it's time for bed. Twice we'll reach our mountaintop. Once forgotten, will come down as rain. Collected by our ancestors and our neighbors and our collective dead. Those seen in mirrors, those in our minds. Turning to face them, you'll disappear from view. I can see through these glasses. Without them, I rest in the ashes. This a page I wrote for myself. A word that comes out like a joke will find a way through this maze. Make a meaning from malaise. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Andy.
Oh, I just immediately picked it up. Yeah, thank you, Laura, and thank you, Andy, and everyone for coming out. Oh, that's even better. Thank you. Yeah, this is a straight up spooky story with apologies to Thomas Ligotti. And also with thanks to Janelle, the archivist, who pointed me to these amazing images that will also be part of the story, which is called The Night Class. I arrived late for an evening class in January, a class which I was supposed to be teaching. The sun had just set behind the scrim of bare trees that encircled the hilltop campus. I'd never passed through the stone entry gates to the campus before, nor glimpsed its Gothic buildings from the distant arterial road. The steep driveway wound past dilapidated grottos whose saints had retreated into shadow long ago, and the light was already gone as I tried to decipher the name inscribed in stone over an arched doorway. In the lobby was a bronze Virgin Mary and a sign for the Bank of America, ATM. The heavy wood moldings and marble floors were waxy with age. I saw no sign of students or teachers. I walked past the doors labeled President and Executive Vice President and Chief Officer of Financial Operations. It was a small college. I felt charmed that these august individuals shared a building with the English department, where I was to teach a class, as the replacement for a faculty member who had died and whose tenure line also ceased to be, likely at the discretion of the Chief Officer of Financial Operations. This door displayed colorful flags and slogans encouraging the social inclusion of marginalized groups. Compared with the industrial scale university where I normally taught my irrelevant classes and where glass towers annually sprouted from freshly cleared urban blocks, this campus of 4 or 5 buildings on a remote hill was a relic, the ghost of an image of college that I must have seen in old movies. The wide curving staircase at the back of the building ascended past a series of landings. On the 3rd floor, my eyes snapped to a looming human figure. Upon inspection, a cardboard cutout of the Pope. The English department occupied the 5th floor, directly beneath the eaves, a sprawling indefinite domain of overstuffed furniture, wall-mounted pencil sharpeners, and glass cabinets of keepsakes. The department chair, a robust woman of middle age who wrote books about unruly nuns, handed off a key to her dead colleague's office and dashed for the stairs, having stayed unusually late for the sake of my orientation. I was left alone to marvel at the incredible age of 100 years. I don't, as a rule, indulge in nostalgia for vanished pasts that I have never experienced. This was more a sensation of the definite furrows and parallel tracks of time, the vast distance between the transparent glass towers and the swarm of chambers under the eaves where velvet armchairs proliferated unchecked by contemporary tastes. The seminar room was directly under the bell tower in front of the building, which faced south, and from this great elevation I could see the languid edge of the sun dropping into the distant harbor, throwing its last cold and indifferent rays against the upper windows of the town's few skyscrapers, which appeared to huddle together against whatever lurked beyond the perimeter of day. I took in the sweep of the land rising through its elevations, webbed by headlights and street lamps, until the perimeter of the college, where charcoal night prevailed, pierced only by one vehicle climbing the curved driveway. Perhaps one of my 5 students. I was surprised that the unruly nuns professor had insisted on running this class, given the lack of undergraduate enthusiasm for the subject matter. A packet of texts that I had copied in the wrong order sat on the table before me. I was surprised they let me teach classes, and perhaps I wanted to fail, while not being able to relinquish the notion that students might be moved by the singular genius of the materials I had assembled. I half-heartedly tried to reorder the pages in the packets, which were not stapled together because there seemed to be no stapler amid the piles of creamer cups, old fountain pen parts, and empty Tupperware containers in the combined kitchen and copy room. I tried the doors of my colleagues' empty offices, but they were locked. Teaching at night is like camping in the woods. One must bring everything one needs. It's like camping in a barren and lifeless woods where there are no berries to forage. The students who appeared were tentative creatures. I could barely make out their replies as I read names from the roster. I fumbled through my introduction to the course, already feeling very tired, subdued by the musty wallpaper and damask curtains. I distributed the text, and we sat reading in silence. I felt the risk of falling asleep might be greater if we read aloud, or at least the advantages of speech over silence were undecidable. Either way, I was now to face the crushing irrelevancy of the material I had chosen, seen through the eyes of young people studying communication or psychology in order to work in the human resources department of the local company known for its investment management newsletters. Some critics believed these newsletters to be a kind of pyramid scheme, but federal investigations were inconclusive, and suspicious deaths discouraged us from spreading idle talk. As I scanned lines that I had frequently read with much interest, their rich flavor of sardonic iconoclasm drained away, and I tasted dry dust. Students shuffled their packets, dispassionately searching for the correct sequence, though some read straight through without seeming to notice or care. Our reading material that night was a particular visionary text from the depths of the 19th century that is little read and less understood. While usually associated with the spiritualist movement and its threadbare mind-reading theatrics, the text in question is no sentimental missive from the departed. It does come, I have argued, from somewhere underground, a world that touches our own only through certain fissures, which the stern guardians of morality have boarded up. I laid this out in a halting monologue to 5 dead-eyed stares. When we think about the distinction between fiction and nonfiction, or so-called fact, as we are tasked to do in this course, we naturally seek borderline accounts, for instance, from those who have renounced faith, who have exposed the arts of deception, and who found in the cold chambers of the soul's extremity a passage into the heart of matter, the world beneath the world, what finally and incredibly they feel to be real and incandescently true. Such experiences of ultimate reality are by their nature impossible to replicate and can only survive in poetry or in the case books of the asylum. I felt that I had only blinked, or perhaps closed my eyes for a moment to rest them. It was with more than a little concern that I found myself on the outside of the building, passing by the statue of the Virgin, walking briskly with apparent intent. My steps faltered with the return of conscious awareness. Where were the students from my class? What was the time? The sky was fully uniformly black, and the campus visible only by the reflected halo of the city below. I looked up to the 5th floor windows, which were dark. Skeletal atop the bell tower was the large cross. I felt the keys to the English department clutched in my palm. Given the precarity of my position, it was not advisable to lose my students or to leave the offices unlocked. If I had done so, I would have to reconstruct the missing time between dusk and total night. I was surprised to find that the building had been locked behind me. The school seemed to have no system of securing its grounds, and the unruly nuns professor emphasized the need to take precautions with the department's valuable bric-a-brac. Far more precious to me was any evidence of my recent activities. I skirted the building and tried one stairwell door, also locked, then the next, which I shook lightly. A metallic impact sounded on the other side, and I was left holding the outer part of the door handle, the inner mechanisms of which had snapped off and rolled away. I pried open the door using the hole where the hardware should have been. I had not realized this institution was in such a serious state of decline. Beneath my feet, the floor was soft with dust and grit. The ambient city glow reflecting off banks of clouds came through the windows of each landing, just enough for me to pick my way through the passage towards the inner door. The soles of my shoes grazed broken glass, the door's upper pane was shattered, and as I pushed it open, I heard the scraping of mingled debris. Conditions had clearly deteriorated. In the main hall, the doors of the president and executive vice president hung open. I think my curiosity about the secrets of these administrative bastions was only natural. The dark oak trim in the president's chamber seemed desiccated from exposure to the elements. I could see discolored rings like the rings of trees registering each rain that penetrated the cracked plaster ceiling from some reservoir above. Plaster dust formed irregular mounds on the large executive desk. Waterlogged books and documents bulged from the shelves. The padded furniture looked similarly overripe, oozing soft fungal contents. Shadow, stain, and mold were indistinguishable. The vice president, an anthropologist before the duties of administration claimed her time, had an office filled with artifacts from the world's cultures, or what remained of these artifacts. One rarely thinks about the skeletons within masks or figurines, but the meat, as it were, had been eaten away, leaving the wooden equivalent of a ghastly bone structure. The threads of faded woven wall hangings twitched in the wind from the open windows like a feeble bundle of veins. I suspected that, while the roles of president and vice president of the college may have been eliminated in recent downsizing, the chief director of financial operations was likely to be the last administrator standing in the end. In support of this theory, her office was securely closed. The inclusive decorations on her door appeared worse for the wear, but I approached hoping to gain some reassurance that I would, in fact, be paid for the night class which I had gone to so much trouble to plan, and which I may have already finished teaching. I noticed a textured buzzing noise from inside. Not the buzzing of a single alarm, but one distributed across the room. The prospect of something in the building besides silence and decay encouraged me. The bronze doorknob was actually warm to the touch, as though someone had only recently lingered in the doorway under a parting barrage of orders from the chief director of financial operations. The knob turned smoothly. I briefly glimpsed a seething black cloud of tiny bodies. First one wasp, then another hurled itself through the sliver of open door, piercing the air like Baroque alien bullets. Then they moved as a single mass. I may have closed my eyes. The next thing I saw was the view through the windshield of my car. The cone of the headlights illuminated the winding driveway that led down the hill from the college. I was hurtling toward the banked turn where the road overlooked a new science building ingeniously constructed in a sunken dry stream bed. The headlights swept across the dark valley and briefly filled the glass-walled science laboratory. The sinks and beakers stood in obedient configurations. I must have turned on the high beams because I could see vividly the pattern on the polished linoleum floor tiles, a dense field of black dots that vibrated in the sudden burst of light. But I only saw it for an instant before I passed out through the gates. Thank you.
Next is McShea. The one and only.
Thank you. Hello, friends. This one's called, this is a little travel essay. It's called Swerve Reflex. The silence in the car on the Point Road in St. Inigo's. I swerve to miss the butterfly and later swerve again to miss the long black snake on the road under the vault of trees. Shaken, I pull over to be better situated. I walk into the forest and follow ruts of an old road overgrown, a route in the silence of the forest, and at the end, step into a deep bed of a pine grove in its ample air. My eye catches quick movement just past the tree line, a buzzard in full span spinning around like a top just over the tall grass at the edge of an old field, so close I can know its wingspan with my body because it is clearly greater than my height. which is the least interesting thing about this bird, and yet the most striking to me. I can't see what it's after, and it disappears below the grass, and I turn back. The field was of old plantings in neat rows, but dried and withered. I don't know anything about farming. I walk back to the car, counting my blessings and feeling all the ways I don't belong there. The rest of my set is a cover set. I've been reading a lot of Palestinian poets lately, and so I wanted to read a few that I just really love a lot, and I hope you love them too. These are all poems. I'll read a few poems by the poet Zakaria Muhammad, who died recently. He died in August. He lived in Ramallah. And they're translated by Lena Khalaf Tifaha. Apologies if I pronounced that badly. And after a few poems from Zakaria that she translated, I'll read a poem of hers. She's a Palestinian-American translator and poet. So these few poems don't really have titles. This one is just called 3. People are asses. I hang bells from their necks so they can sing to me while I recline on a rock. People are fools. I'll hang them up in the wardrobe like winter clothes. Maize barley is about to ripen. Each stalk has lined up its seeds in orderly fashion so they can stand at the gate of heaven. I can line up words without meaning. I can create meaning from nothingness. I tie a horse near the barley, and meaning overflows. Meaning is orderliness. Meaning is coincidence. Meaning is a beast of burden hauling watermelons. If only I could line things up like a stalk of barley does. Barley takes its own life in May, and wheat opens its mute mouth in June. My time is the end of August. At the end of August, my trigger snaps. Oh, if only I could live in a glass of water, my roots white, my hair green, and the sun my only god. I have one song I keep repeating. I have one great lie I've attached to the ceiling with tape so that the flies of truth will stick to it. My head is huge, like a balloon. My hand is a destitute star. The knife is a painful simplicity I do not possess. And when I arrive at meaning, it is lost to me. This one is, thank you. This one is just called number 4. He was crying, so I took his hand to steady him and wipe away his tears. I told him as sorrow choked me, I promise you that justice will prevail in the end and that peace will come soon. I was lying to him, of course. I know that justice won't prevail and peace won't come soon, but I had to stop his tears. I had this false notion that says, if we can, by some sleight of hand, stop the river of tears, everything would proceed in a reasonable manner. Then things would be accepted as they are. Cruelty and justice would graze together in the field. God would be Satan's brother, and the victim would be his killer's beloved. But there is no way to stop the tears. They constantly pour out like a flood and ruin the lying ceremony of peace. And for this, for tears' bitter obstinance, let the eye be consecrated as the truest saint on the face of the earth. It is not poetry's job to wipe away tears. Poetry should dig a trench where they can overflow and drown the universe. Right? This one is called January 2nd. I shot a gazelle once. Here, a gazelle is a poetic necessity, nothing more. The truth is made of white and black sheep. Anyway, I set a trap for the gazelle, and it fell into it. I had an indescribable longing to savor some salty gazelle meat. I don't like the lamb they sell in stores, but I do like your brown hand as it pins metals on my shoulder. I like your lips when they say, you're the pollen of the palm tree. Me, a palm tree? I'm the steel that wounds it, and the terrifying moon that sacrifices it. I can't bear my exile any longer. I no longer distinguish between store-bought gazelles and the lamb of the poem. Casting out the gazelle is futile. The pollen of the palm tree is futile. If I die, log into my inbox. The password is written on a scrap of paper on the table. There you'll find my will, and you'll grab the gazelle by its horns. Thanks. One more by Zakaria. This is called August 15th. I await the end of August and the murder of September. I am here, tardy autumn, waiting for you. I've prepared you a wheat porridge and lit a fire. Come with your wind and sweep away the shameless sun. Lift its hand from my shoulders. Summer lies heavily on my chest, but my white hand swears by autumn and readies the saddle for its wretched horses. Autumn considers my idea, then implements it. Rows of stones ringing the hillside and scattered clouds climbing the slope of the sky. Nothing more than this, nothing more. Of course, you could add a burst of lightning to shatter my bones and the bones of the world. You were all mistaken. You thought that horses live on the hills of spring. Autumn's hills are the horses' residence. The scent of rain excites them. Their nostrils flare. Then they leap over stone walls toward the summit to graze on the edges of the clouds. Thank you. Isn't this amazing? So I found those and a bunch of other beautiful poetry in an issue of the Baffler magazine from 2021. It's online. It's called Voices from Palestine. And then the poems that are, the titles are dates. The last two that I read are on the Poetry Foundation website. And then this is a poem by the person who translated those poems from Arabic, Lena Khalaf Tufaha. It's called Miss Sahar Listens to Fairuz Sing the Bee's Path. And I think it's a pantoum, so you'll hear lines repeating. But I don't really know my poetry forms too well, so. If you're going to scorch this heart and leave a desert in your absence, tell me now and I'll follow the bees. If you're going to scorch this heart, I'll hem the horizon in solitude. Tell me now and I'll follow the bees inside the anemones scarring the hillside. I'll hem the horizon in solitude, the light lengthening, breaking inside the anemones, scarring the hillside. I'll spiral inside the dome of the sky, the light lengthening, breaking. This moment gathered around us as I spiral inside the dome of the sky. Spring is a ravishment, forever dying, dying, dying. This moment gathered around us is honey and wild greens and the promise of ravishment forever dying, dying, dying. We're just another love song, remembered or forgotten. Honey and wild greens and the promise of losing you in the desert of what happens next. We're just another love song, remembered or forgotten. Will you stay until the anemones fold back into the land? Will you stay until the anemones fold back into the land or leave a desert in your absence? Are we just another love song, remembered or forgotten? Tell me now, and I'll follow the bees.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Current Space.
Wow, you are quite a character. Quite loud. I guess I thought, since your silence, that you would be a little quieter.
Well, you thought wrong. I'm multi-dimensional. I like to play with volume and intensity as much as the next person.
Let's observe one another. I'm kind of in search for what you're all about. what silence is all about.
I suppose I'm also interested in you. You are also quite loud. Well, not as loud as silence, I should say.
I would not consider myself a silent person. I distinctly remember my friend, Amelia, calling me Old Stompy because of a clomp around your house with above average in volume footballs. And that's not even as loud as my voice, my loudest part.
Let me observe. Okay. I can hear your breath blowing out of the caves of your nostrils. I can hear the blood buzzing in your ears. I can hear the muffled gurgles of your hungry tummy. I can hear your thoughts pinging around your brain. Ping, ping.
Whoa.
Bring, bring. Nope. Okay. What's up? Can you hear me now? Good. Wow. Yeah. This is my kind of party. Complete silence. Now those loser sounds around. What's another example of silence? Why is this classroom so silent? I said, why is this classroom so silent?
Why are you so loud?
Whoa! 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 Whoa!
Ah, yes. Thanks for coming out tonight. Give it up for yourselves. Okay, I'm gonna tell a joke and no one laughed.
In Buddhism, one idea is that silence connects to a vast open place, rife with good ideas that help grow a laser focus.
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
Good, good. How are you? What's up?
I'm good. Well, actually, I have something really important that I want to tell you, Mike. Okay, I've been thinking about this for a long time, but, hello? But well, I'm just gonna come out and say it.
Jake, buddy, I can't hear you.
Mike!
I think you pressed
I
mute
love
shit
you,
again.
Mike!
Dude, you gotta get rid of that shitty Android, bro. You gotta get an iPhone. Now, what do you think? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Jake? Oh, crap. So quiet. You can hear a pin drop because something is horrible or wonderful.
There is usually a large group of people not making a sound.
Or when someone drops their tray in the cafeteria, afraid of the sound at first, but then a certain social horror of being connected to someone who has singled themselves out as clumsy.
Or silence because what we heard was unspeakable.
Or silence because it was shocking news, or someone did something completely unexpected. Bring, bring. The fishes are bubbling.
Whoa! Volcanic vents!
The hum of a submarine.
The crushing weight of darkness.
Just you wait.
Now this is silence. There's no air to carry our sound waves.
But listen closely. Yep. Those are the gravitational waves put off of black holes merging.
Look. That's beautiful.
Thank you, Andy, as always. I feel like I've become like a little bit of part of the weekend band of these events, and I kind of think all poetry is like a silence where something else could go. But I feel like every time I'm here, I read about like seancing with my dead grandfather, or like the bleakest stage of early widowhood, or the convergence of like early aughts, late 90s pornography with like my first realization that mass atrocity happened. So anyways, I'm gonna read some poems about falling in love. That's what I'm gonna say. And about being in Belfast. If the path is overgrown with phlox, May apples, and the vines which choke up all the rightful poplar sunlight when the giants don't elbow in with their laughing tangles, does it begin between us with confusion or excitement, and which sense deepens as we walk further than before into these woods. Each trip takes us to one place chartered and one beyond the known world. Each ends with a sign about bottom feeders and fish who jumped clear from one body of water to the next, and we don't know what they're doing here. We lack both natural predators and natural prey. In a clearing, we see a heron on a rock cormorant, and a juvenile eagle scatters its flute song above a break in the tree line, which my brother tells me is known as a river of sky, as in you can follow it. Is the beginning fraught or golden with anticipation? Do I walk with you or with myself as we name our siblings, list the books we read in common, distinguish which men in our family drank themselves into quietude and which into violence? The answer is never none of the men. There's always at least one starling strung like a puppet on the electric line below the dam. There is always water being stopped up or started. There is always water, and we go with it. Imagine one poem to unify the straggles of your distant dreams. You're a lighthouse and the night is foggy, or you're a mural and the wall is blood wet, or you're a prince and the world you rule is a bevy of kindnesses so vast you don't know who to begin knighting or where to declare war. A stream lifts into smoke, leaving the country below perfectly green and impossible to rule, the air full of children's songs. You have a singing like that, don't you? A singing for when all else fails and you must try meeting on level earth to plant the one thing you know grows there. Or there's not a ruler but a wild country, the dear and dire fact of a small hill where even now there is a woman squinting into the distance for the sails of your ship, cursing the long name of your absence, tying ribbons around the future of your coming. At night she weaves a basket to each of her hips with which to carry all the unwieldiness of hoping for you. There is an hour when love goes on speaking in the formlessness of echo. There is an hour above this hour, and in the dream these sound forever. I'm carrying Edgar Kuntz's Fixer around Belfast, and in his poem Night Herons, he says, "The dramas of my life those days were pitched as high as I could stand, higher sometimes. And I'm thinking about the years of my life when finding you would have meant more or less to me than it does now, anything except life-sized. And I'm imagining that growing up, it must not have been a big leap for kids to turn Edgar's last name into Kuntz. The man at the gas station doesn't charge me extra for the grocery bag, and I think, some things are the same here. Things about girls. Sometimes men commit little infractions on our behalf as a small and shared rebellion because they must know there are monumental wrongs being done us daily, sometimes done by the swell of their own hearts or the acts of their own hands. Did you wake up thinking of me as the sandstone that builds bridges or the gunpowder that cracks them at their core? Did you think of me in all the places where grit clings to the damp outline? This is how to get lost in a city. Believe the map and frighten easily. In the basin at midday, the coast is alive with clipped waves of seagrass, coral shelves, mollusks sucking the side in the warm lap of low tide. Pink and lemon gems full of salt and juice. You can see what kind of war a city is used to by the shape of its streets. Here's how we were sectioned off, once by monarchy and again by choice, Here's how we guarded and then lost control of our young. Here's where our young became grown or were shot down before their becoming. Here's where we would have kneecapped Christ himself if he raised the wrong flag. Here are the houses built so low and far that the skyline is buried in someone's kitchen, where even now a mother is stirring so her son survives. You'll never see above this. There has never actually been a world above this. You'd better come in now and see how we live. When the man drops my dinner off, he says, "Ta, love," and I think, I've been waiting my entire life to understand something about myself as good and as simple as what he clocked the moment I answered the door. He has no questions about who I am or what I might want. There being only so many things in this life to want, and me being a woman, which cuts those things precisely in half. And it's not sexist so much as it is getting on with things. A world where we can take something for granted is an act of survival. Using the shorthand you're dealt to think, here's your dinner, there's your life. But probably he's not thinking any of this at all, about me or my quest to understand why a stranger who calls me love brings me more joy than I can speak, because it means there is some collapsible artifice between all of us, just holding the love apart. If we can flood it, we'll be fine. No more than likely, he's thinking about the girl waiting, blessings betide us, in his passenger seat. Her long hair licking her seat and his. My food, when I open it, tastes like the pot they smoked in his car while she rode around with him, choosing to be anywhere he goes, dropping curries off, fine, so long as he's there. I can picture them idling around the corner, his hand on her leg, and the air warmer than I hear it's been for years. She's holding the joint while he lights it, and then they take a deep breath together, and she says, "Let's not go just yet. Oh, my love, not now, when I've found you, please. Let's circle slow." I think this is the last one. I would like to apologize to everyone except you for the way my heart works. Here's the clock racing itself for relevancy. Here's a burst of springs and witching light. When people ask, "How's God?" I say, like a lover I'm waiting to want as much as he wants me. Like my fingertips hungering down a corridor for the candle I can't see. When the lights in the church go out, I'm thinking, for once, let my knowledge of the Creator align with my love for what he's made. The walls of the old city breathed out their last war this way. He grabbed her hand, and they swelled with a dance that shook the streets. Like you, he came with flowers above the carnage, and the gates flung open, and the people were so busy living in unremembered peace that they hardly noticed the flowers bloomed his name. Thank you, guys.
So while we get ready, thanks again, everybody, for coming out. These are impossible times, and so glad that I can be more silent tonight. But I can think of no other occasion to read something from something I read all the time, and maybe it feels so abstract sometimes, but it feels concrete to me all the time. It's from a book called The Writing of Disaster, and I'll just read a few things while we wait. And really is about an impossible friendship that I always, we're the most adaptable creatures, but, we don't prove it. So, these are just a few fragments connected together. When the other is related to me in such a way that the utter stranger in me answers him, her, whatever, in me answers the other in my stead. This answer is the immemorial friendship, which cannot be chosen, nor can it be lived in the present. It is an offering. It offers a share of the passivity which has no subject. It is dying outside of the self, the body, which belongs to no one, in non-narcissistic suffering and joy. Put my glasses on for that. Friendship is not a gift or a promise. It is not a form of generosity. Rather, this incommensurable relation of one to the other is the outside, drawing near in its separation, its separateness and inaccessibility. Desire, pure, impure desire, is the call to bridge the distance, to die in common through separation. Death suddenly powerless, if friendship is the response that one can hear and make heard only by dying ceaselessly. Final fragment, keep silence. Silence cannot be kept. It is indifferent with respect to the work of art which would claim to respect it. It demands a weight which has nothing to await, a language which, presupposing itself as the totality of discourse, would spend itself all at once, disjoin and fragment endlessly.
Good evening. Michael, I guess we didn't really sound check, so we'll just wing it a bit, right? Otherwise. So about two weeks ago today, I fell off a ladder about 5 feet, and I cracked 2 ribs and my scapula, and I think maybe I'm using it as an excuse because my voice is a little shaky anyway, a little pitchy. If it's pitchy, blame it on the fractured ribs. And also, anyone who knows me will probably imagine I have a slightly awkward relationship with silence. But there is some sort of reference. So the first one, the Fedden is this immense field near where I grew up, and I used to pick potatoes there. In the Highlands of Scotland, you get 2 weeks off school in October to pick potatoes. Probably doesn't happen now. You like crawl behind a tractor. The tractor runs ahead, and 2 of you in twos on your knees have laundry baskets, and you put the potatoes into the basket, and the farmer and his sons go, pick them fucking toys, pick them fucking toys. And it's your like entry into the world of work. It's kind of insane, but you get paid in cash. And at the end of 10 days, like 2 weekends and the week off, you've maybe got like £100 and you feel obscenely rich. But the friendships formed in the furrows of that field that you think will last forever, but perhaps don't, create a silence of the conversations that don't continue beyond that point. How about that? Tenuous, but that's all I've got. You got me?
From the young Fedden's ashes, we were stopped in our tracks by the dirt. Our core persona knew some clashes, but against them I'll hear not a word. We were pirates by name, beggars by trade. We hauled our detritus by night, to be sought by the young Fedden's glances was to feel most obscenely alive, to be born on the line. I smudged my face with the said Fedden's ashes. I didn't know it would be such a big deal. I strutted and pouted so far from my style, as remarked on by those with a feel for the foolishness of love, bisected while drugged, stoked to observe full desire, but to flourish midst the unfattened choices, made such base restrictions retire at cries of life. Choked on the young fatten's ashes, I spat them as far as I could, to bracken spears wobbled by raindrops, the spider's webs whispering I could, rebuild in the interim and dazzle again, unsanctioned by those who perceive that the fatten's just mud, there's nothing in there, you're a fool to see it, but once you do, you believe.
This silence is a different, an older silence. Bloody silence.
in the presence of nature power. I'll get on my knees and pray. Tallow lights the common folk, burning back the creosote. Shoveling keys in turquoise coats, eyeing strangers on the road. Now we know what they were stealing. They've been stealing directly from your soul. Tonight we'll roll for the returning, that bittersweet yearning at some open goal. Rides they come and rides they go, but this one has some feeling. High shine light where lows won't go, if you're open to revealing what you've been concealing. I don't know how we'll control it, and if you've stolen it, please don't bring it home. 'Cause when she goes, such a drifter, who'd ever lift her when she needs to roam? Rides may come and rides may go, but this one has some feeling. High shine light where lows won't go, when you're open to revealing. Rides they come and rides they go, but all at once the real thing shows, and suddenly you know she knows what you were intent on concealing. You're now revealing. Each waking hour goes slowly though, your heart staccato's wild. You ask yourself, is this the type of trait you might spot in a child? Rides may come and rides they go, high shine light where lows won't go. Rides they come and rides they go. Suddenly you know she knows.
Sorry, I forget that when I was trying to do slower ones to leave myself space to breathe in case my ribs start hurting, but they just end up being bummer ones. Not necessarily. The next one is about silence, but it's a special silence, maybe like a Sunday shopping silence. It's called the Marshall's Solution, and in my mind, I thought it would become about a marshal, a figure, a military figure, struggling to find a way to justify their actions, but actually, it's about sitting in the parking lot at Marshall's, waiting for Rachel to get some like really cheap candles. So I'm sitting in the car with the phone going like, ah, and she comes out and she says, "What are you doing?" I said, nothing. So it's, the Marshall's parking lot in Towson is actually where this song is.
It's tough times on the island once the season's done. It's hard to see the reason once the wee one's gone. So try to gauge the height you're falling from. Well, next thing that you know, you'll be standing in the snow with all your feelings numb. The conditions are fine, but it's time to decree. Let better times must surely be framed with some mastery. So let the authors come to disconnect a punishment should you neglect the eyes, son. You forget the eyes and you will regret it. Tough times on the street 'cause your rhythms are forgotten. You try to pick a side, can condition and provide, but that's a joke long gone. Am I the only one who can see them there? The floating clear as day at the top of the stair. I find it such fun. But now you check it out, son. There's no style, there's no flair. They're saying you'll be welcome when you're already there. So you walk like a lamb until you can't stand, and then you roll, you roll, you tuck and roll. Petition denied, contagious designs on thee. Someone explained it to
So this will be the last one. Thanks as always to Andy, the mellowest bully we know, drawing people out. Brilliant stuff as always. Always a treat to be here. This one is about people who occasionally appear to be the most amazing person you know, and you just want to shut up and let them talk, but you're not entirely sure. Charisma. It's neither good nor bad.
Don't waste my time, I've years on the line. We're solving our sad society. Boasting my crimes to the ace on the line. In a place and a time where we're free. Most sordid of times with the ace on the line. An extraordinary creature it seems. We're expected to climb to the heights they reside. Without harness or any sort of protection. I can see it's just you and me. Confronting my vision, a ragdoll appears, extorting some love. Strikes fear to the heart of the vampire who slides up on all with a penny to rub. The dexterous hands of the ace on the line are a constant reminder to quit. That dirt on the knuckle, it's blackened or blood. And if you cry out for love, you might get hit. From down below, the ace thinks the future is trapped just like us, but when it's ready to go, it's gonna go. Decides when